Hi everyone, my name is Abhiraj Karakapati. Welcome to my YouTube channel Amazing Abhi.
Don't just watch the story, live it.
Back at the mansion, Rick and Dwayne were left speechless when Logan returned in tatters. They demanded to know what had happened. Logan casually said he had fallen off his horse. His battered appearance caused an uproar, but the matter was quietly set aside. Patrick was visibly ashamed, saying that Logan had endured all these hardships because the family lacked sufficient power. Logan reassured his father that they would soon repay everything in kind, but to do that, he needed to reorganize their forces. On the training field, Ronan swung his sword again and again, his movements sharp but restless. He remembered what Logan had told him before the war, that it would be easy, and that Ronan wouldn't be needed yet, that he should focus on polishing his skills. Back then, Ronan had accepted it, but now he couldn't stand being treated like a child anymore. He was just about to push himself harder when Logan suddenly interrupted him, telling him to take a short break. Logan then introduced the person Ronan would be training with from now on. Victor stood there wearing brand new gleaming armor. Ronan asked if the armor fit properly, but his thoughts were elsewhere. Victor looks to be around the same age as him. Was he also a Force user? Logan confirmed it calmly, saying that Victor had recently awakened his Force and was the same age as Ronan, which would make him perfect motivation. Ronan then asked what Logan meant by training together, and Logan answered without hesitation, fighting. The two stared at each other, tension rising instantly. Logan gave the signal, and Victor moved first, aiming straight for Ronan's neck. Ronan barely dodged and immediately realized what was happening. Victor was using the Iron Blood Sword. That was enough. Ronan charged forward, determined to take him down. Victor sensed the danger just in time. Ronan unleashed a powerful wave of energy, but Victor leaped high into the air and avoided it, preparing a counter-attack. He slammed his sword into the ground, creating a crater. But Ronan slipped away at the last moment and called him a monster. Victor didn't even flinch. Logan burst out laughing, asking Ronan who exactly he was calling a monster. Ronan reset his stance, deciding he would go all out. Victor smiled, completely relaxed. Watching from a distance, Logan felt satisfied. His judgment had been correct. The two had natural synergy. Victor had fully absorbed the Iron Blood Sword and was adapting it to his own style, while Ronan, already experienced, fought freely without being chained to rigid forms. Ronan shouted that Victor wasn't allowed to use punches. Victor replied that anything was allowed in a real fight, making Logan laugh again. Logan told them not to push too hard and thought to himself that there were still 7 years before the Empire's War began. Ronan and Victor would be ready in 5 or 6. He briefly wondered how terrifying Victor would become if he learned the Divine Sword secrets, but that would require a proper catalyst to keep him close. Later, inside Logan's office, Clayton and his disciples were completely shocked by what Logan told them. Victoria, standing nearby, calmly stated that she could see the mana band. Logan tried to convince her to learn something she enjoyed, so she would stay in the castle. When Victoria said she wanted to learn how to move clay dolls using the yellow thread, Logan was stunned. Clayton interrupted and asked if she could really see where he was sending his mana. Victoria pointed at one of the disciples, calling him old, and said that was where the mana was flowing. They tried again, and she pointed at a water bottle instead. Clayton grabbed Victoria by the shoulders, trembling, and declared that she was special, that not even legendary great mages could see mana with their naked eyes. Logan wondered if seeing mana was really that extraordinary. He asked Victoria if she truly wanted to learn magic. She answered that if that was how she could control the giant doll, then yes, she wanted to learn. Logan insisted again, and Victoria explained that if she could control it, she could do much more. Logan decided then and there to entrust Victoria to Clayton, but before anyone could respond, the girl had already vanished. Clayton shouted for someone to bring a measuring tape while he personally began taking Victoria's measurements. Logan watched in silence, thinking that both siblings were geniuses. Their forces were steadily growing stronger. Maybe it was time to go to Grand, especially since he had made a promise to his master. He planned to go alone, but things didn't go as planned. 7 knights surrounded him, clearly assigned as guards. Captain Henderson of the 18th Squadron introduced himself, but Logan was visibly irritated and told them to leave. Patrick had warned him that it would be rude to the Sword Duke to arrive without at least a minimal escort. Logan then noticed Rick and asked what he was doing there. Rick replied that it wouldn't be appropriate for the heir of a noble house to walk around without a personal servant. Logan didn't buy it and asked if Rick simply wanted to visit the capital. Rick broke into a cold sweat and admitted it. No one talked to him anymore, and he needed to get married. Logan covered his ears and complained that they would only slow him down. As they departed, Logan focused on his real goals. First, identifying changes in the future. Second, finding the third prince and forming a connection. He recalled the royal family's history. King Samuel von Grandia had no heir until the age of 40, so he had 2 sons with concubines. 10 years later, the queen gave birth to the third prince, who surpassed his brothers and became the successor. Logan remembered that winter, just before the third prince came of age, the civil war would begin with the king's death. The first prince, von Doblas, a 6th Circle mage, and the second prince, Jordan Volterman, would both have the backing of their grandfathers. Logan had once seen the third prince on the verge of execution before Felix intervened, claiming the king's will demanded his survival. Despite surviving, the third prince would lead the country to ruin within 5 years. Logan decided long ago that he would never allow that man to become king. The second prince wasn't much better, either. He needed to see the third prince with his own eyes to judge whether he deserved the throne. Inside the castle, Logan's servants were speechless. Rick approached again, suggesting that Logan should make connections and asking for help getting close to one of the maids. Annoyed, Logan smacked Rick on the head, knocking him to the ground. A man then arrived to escort Logan and introduced himself as Louis Rayan, the Duke's supervisor. Logan recognized him instantly. In his past life, Louis had given him the divine sword secrets and told him to memorize them and pass them on to someone worthy. Logan couldn't remember anything else Louis had given him. Louis led him to the office and said the Duke was waiting. As Louis turned away, a voice called out. Logan smirked faintly and turned around, planting his feet in the opposite direction. He commented casually that it felt very nice to see him again, and that he was genuinely glad to see he looked as good as ever. It quickly became clear that Logan was addressing the Sword Duke and his wife. The Duchess acknowledged Logan's presence, saying she had heard quite a lot about him from Felix. She told Logan that they owed him immensely. Logan replied politely, saying it was nice to finally meet her and congratulated her on the birth of her child. The Duchess smiled and said that, before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing a Pie grow naturally. We're already talking about that. There was something she wanted to ask him. Logan answered calmly that he was open to anything she wished to ask. She gently placed her hands over her stomach and asked Logan if he would choose their baby's name. The moment the words left her mouth, Logan froze completely. Felix stepped in, explaining that he and the Duchess had discussed this matter for quite some time. He said that everything they had now was thanks to Logan, which was why they wanted him to be the one to choose their child's name. Logan, however, was still stunned into silence. Inside his mind, Logan reflected on the meaning of names. In Grandia, a name was believed to decide and illuminate the path the child would walk in life. Since ancient times, nobles had sought out respected figures to name their children, sometimes holding feasts solely to celebrate the naming, but leaving such an important task to him felt different. He and the Sword Duke had only met twice, yet it was undeniable that they had already influenced each other's lives in profound ways. Logan realized how heavy the responsibility was, but at the same time, he saw no reason to refuse. Logan finally spoke and said that it would be an honor for him. Hearing this, both Felix and the Duchess were overjoyed and thanked him sincerely. Felix then turned to his wife and gently told her to go rest, reminding her that she was with child and should not strain herself. The Duchess protested lightly, saying that manners still mattered and that this was an important request. Felix glanced back, thinking to himself that this arrangement was beneficial for Logan as well. After all, being known as the one who named the Sword Duke's child was no small distinction. With some effort, Felix managed to escort his wife out of the room. Once the wooden door closed behind her, he leaned against it and sighed, admitting that he was never very good with words. He then turned his attention back to Logan and said that they should talk about their bodies. Logan looked confused, not understanding what Felix meant by that. Felix studied him closely and said that he was surprised by how quickly Logan's force had grown. In such a short span of time, his progress was abnormal. Felix concluded by saying that he wanted to see just how strong Logan had become now. Inside the training grounds, Felix and Logan stood facing each other once again, both fully prepared to fight. Logan moved first, leaping forward and attacking with everything he had, but in the blink of an eye, Felix dodged cleanly and appeared right behind him, already set to counter. Logan redirected his attack, but Felix blocked it effortlessly. Watching this, Logan realized just how easily Felix was stopping him. He truly tested his limits, but before he could continue, Felix suddenly told him to stop. He demanded to know what Logan thought he was doing, leaving Logan momentarily speechless. Felix then asked almost mockingly if that was really Logan's full strength. Logan admitted that he had been holding back. Felix ordered him to stop restraining himself and give it everything he had. Logan began charging his aura, staring straight at Felix while taking his stance. This was the first real training session since they had officially become master and disciple, and Logan knew he could not afford to disappoint him. He unleashed a powerful attack that even shook the Sword Duke, yet Felix still blocked it with ease. The resulting explosion was so intense that the two of them vanished behind the blinding light. Logan thought quickly. After using the rippling divide, there was only one move left. He gathered his strength and launched the killer iron slash straight at Felix. Felix scoffed, calling it nonsense, which shocked Logan. In the next instant, Felix had already dodged the attack, moved behind him, and placed his sword against Logan's neck. He remarked that with strength this weak, Logan would probably collapse after just 2 moves. Felix then kicked Logan's knee, sending him crashing to the ground. Standing over him, he asked whether wasting his force like an idiot was all Logan knew how to do. Logan clenched his sword tightly, anger flaring. Being told that his divine sword secrets combination was idiotic enraged him, especially since he had used that very combo to wound the Moonlight Knight. Felix stared him down and demanded that Logan show him everything he had, his real swordsmanship, warning him not to disappoint him again. Gritting his teeth, Logan promised he would demonstrate properly this time. He leaped backward and prepared another attack, once again charging the killer iron slash. But Felix looked completely unimpressed and told Logan he had misunderstood him. Felix moved so fast that even Logan couldn't track him. One moment he was there, and the next he was gone. Logan didn't even hear footsteps. He panicked, wondering where Felix had disappeared to. In the next instant, Felix appeared behind him, and Logan felt fear crawl up his spine. He turned too late. Felix slammed the handle of his sword into Logan's face, knocking him down instantly. The sparring continued, with Logan desperately trying to attack again. It was useless. Felix disarmed him with ease, leaving Logan holding nothing but pain and what felt like a sprained wrist. Felix questioned whether Logan truly called that swordsmanship and whether he was even trying at all. Logan couldn't understand what Felix wanted, as he kept criticizing his swordsmanship over and over. Felix finally explained Logan might have grown stronger in raw power since they last met, but his swordsmanship hadn't improved. In fact, it had deteriorated. Turning his back, Felix told him that his fundamentals were broken. Instead of dumping all his force into flashy techniques, Logan should rebuild his basics and make them the foundation of his strength. Even if Logan reached the next level through luck or talent, it would only raise the height of the next while blocking him. Hearing this, Logan realized Felix was right. He had regained power too easily after regressing, relying on memories and the divine sword secrets while growing arrogant. Since returning from the past, everything had gone smoothly and he had misjudged himself. Swallowing his pride, Logan asked Felix to give him one more chance. Felix seemed intrigued. As he turned around, Logan had already taken his stance again. He begged for one more opportunity, saying he would rebuild his fundamentals from scratch, but it was pointless. Moments later, Logan lay unconscious on the ground. 2 knights rushed in, declaring Logan an emergency patient who needed to be taken to the medical ward immediately. Louise and Felix watched silently from the training grounds. Felix told Louise that swordsmanship is learned through the body, and the more it hurts, the better the lesson sticks. Louise commented that Felix seemed to have taken a liking to Logan. Felix replied that Logan was wasting his talent, but he respected his determination nonetheless. Just then, someone interrupted them, apologizing for intruding. Rick stepped forward, introduced himself as Logan's servant, and handed Felix a letter. Felix noted that the sender was Baron Meekline, Logan's father, and remarked that the message could have been sent magically. Rick explained that it wouldn't have been appropriate for Logan to know about it. Felix opened the letter and began reading. Patrick formally addressed Felix as Count Esperanza, expressing deep respect and stating that he was making a request. He acknowledged that the McLeans were already indebted to Felix for a favor they could never repay. Thanks to the secret Felix had given them, their knights had grown stronger and survived many hardships. Patrick admitted that it might be shameless to ask for more, but knowing how generously Felix had guided Logan with the secrets of the sword, he felt compelled to make this request. Reading this, Felix was confused. He recalled only giving them a low-rank manual and wondered what great secrets Patrick was referring to. The letter continued, stating that Logan had suffered a small pain last year, and if Felix accepted this request, the McLeans would be eternally grateful. Felix found the request interesting, but kept his thoughts to himself. He turned to Rick and asked if Logan knew about this letter. Rick replied that Logan had no idea, believing it wasn't the time to worry about such matters. Felix reread the letter and suddenly grew furious, muttering to himself how a 20-year-old could possibly not be interested in women. He then told Rick that he would do his best 1 week later. After another intense round of training, Felix brought up something Logan absolutely did not expect. He casually proposed that Logan should go on a date. Logan froze, unsure how he was even supposed to respond. Felix, completely serious, explained that as an heir with no fiancé at the age of 21, Logan's situation was frankly shameful. Because of that, Felix said he intended to find him a suitable match. Logan immediately questioned this, asking whether Felix hadn't wanted him to focus entirely on training while he was here, and why this topic had suddenly come up out of nowhere. Felix replied calmly that before we move ahead, please take a second to share on this video. Sharing helps this video reach friends who may also enjoy anime, gaming, travel, cricket, chess, career basics, or personal stories. Your support helps Amazing Apai grow naturally. Heart was essential for proper training. He said this was something he himself had only truly understood after meeting his wife. Logan, however, was busy thinking about everything he wished he could say in response. A war was going to break out in just a few months, and he simply didn't have the time or mental space for engagements or romance. Still, he asked Felix again why he had decided to bring this matter up now. Felix admitted that he had received a request and, more importantly, that he was worried about the future of his beloved pupil. That answer only made Logan more uneasy. He asked directly whether the request had come from his own family. Felix confirmed it had, explaining that his family was naturally worried since a grown heir should already be engaged by now. Logan thought the whole thing was pointless, but he also knew he couldn't outright ignore his teacher's words. In the end, he lowered his head and prepared himself to agree. He decided that meeting the girls wouldn't hurt and wasting 1 day would be acceptable. The next day on the manor grounds, a beautiful young woman stood waiting in front of Logan and greeted him politely, saying it was nice to meet him. She then introduced herself fully as Eileen Floyd. Behind Logan, Rick nearly lost his mind the moment he saw her. Her beauty shocked him, and even Logan was visibly taken aback. Rick leaned closer and whispered that Eileen was almost too good for Logan, adding that even he, someone who usually showed no interest in women, was stunned. Logan looked at Eileen again, wondering how this was even possible. His potential fiancée was not only beautiful, but also a force user and a strong one at that. He could tell she stood at the pinnacle of low rank, bordering on intermediate at only 18 years old, which was absurd. Then her name hit him: Floyd. In his past life, the Floyd family's talents had died tragically during the 3 years of war, but one person stood above the rest. The warrior who guarded the inner castle gates, cut down 100 knights, and earned the title Rose of Steel, blooming from a fallen family. That person was Eileen Floyd. Realizing this, Logan thought the meeting was far more significant than he had expected. If he could bring her into the McLean family before the war broke out, it would change everything. He even considered that if this became a proper marriage instead of a simple engagement, he could use that to bring her to McLean immediately. but he had never heard of nobles marrying their fiancée just months after meeting, and he wasn't sure what to do. Eileen looked at Logan, a bead of sweat forming on her cheek as she prepared to speak. Eileen asked Logan whether he had also been forced to come here. It seemed like a fair question, but Logan wasn't really listening. She continued, saying she understood the embarrassment of the situation and that she didn't want to waste any time. She stepped closer and told him directly that they should go and spend some meaningful time together. A memory surfaced, shifting to what looked like the Floyd family's training grounds. Eileen was speaking with her father, asking whether he still hadn't given up on finding her fiancé while she was taking a break from sword training. Count Robert Floyd replied that her beauty alone still made her desirable, and that this time the recommendation had come from Felix Esperanza himself. Hearing that name, Eileen immediately realized he meant the Sword Duke and found the situation interesting. Robert explained that the potential match was Felix's own pupil. Not many people knew that yet, but word was spreading that he would soon become famous. Still, Robert added that Logan probably wouldn't surpass Eileen, who had awakened her force at just 12 years old. Eileen's past engagements came to mind. Her first engagement had ended after she beat up her fiancé. After that incident, she had been banned from training, though only for 2 years. Later, she beat up her second fiancé as well, someone already qualified to become a knight, proving her superiority over most of them. That reputation earned her the infamous title of the maiden who beats up knights. With a name like that, combined with her determination to become a knight, marriage proposals had all but vanished. That was why Robert believed they had to seize this opportunity. If the Sword Duke himself had acknowledged Logan's talent, then maybe this was finally someone capable of handling his daughter. Back in the present, Eileen once again asked Logan to spend time doing something meaningful together. Logan was left speechless. As she clasped her hands together, he finally asked what she meant by meaningful. Eileen said she had heard Logan was the Sword Duke's pupil. She asked Logan to cross blades with her. Well, let's see how this spar date goes. Later, on the knight's training grounds, it was clear that both of their servants had already heard what was happening. They were completely baffled by the situation and kept begging the two of them to stop this madness before it turned into something serious. Eileen's servant nervously asked whether she was really planning to beat up her potential fiancé again, especially since the Count had practically begged her not to repeat that incident. Eileen replied calmly that this time was different. She explained that the previous two had looked down on her and behaved rudely, making comments about how having force would make her good only for giving birth to strong children, or boasting that they could take her down barehanded. Back then, she had decided to teach them a lesson and honestly felt she should have beaten them even harder. But then she turned her head toward Logan once more and repeated that this time, it was different. Across the training grounds, Rick was desperately pleading with Logan, asking why he was warming up so seriously. He warned him that if word spread that he had hit a woman, the Lord would have a heart attack. Logan told Rick not to worry, explaining that he had already requested the entire training area be sealed off, so nothing would leak out. At the same time, Logan found himself thinking about Eileen's strength. Ever since he had heard her name, he had wondered whether it was truly possible that she had once slain 100 knights by herself. He decided that he would find out for himself. Eileen's servant, realizing there was no stopping this, shouted for her to make sure she won. As Eileen took a deep breath and prepared for the fight, Rick and her servant could be seen arguing in the background. Rick kept insisting that she had no idea how skilled his master was, while her servant shot back that he had no idea how skilled her young lady truly was. When Eileen approached Logan, she told him that she had been training alone for 10 years. She warned him that she had already beaten a knight before and hoped he wouldn't underestimate her. Logan replied calmly that he had no intention of underestimating her at all. In fact, he told her plainly that he wouldn't go easy on her and that he hoped she would understand if he was a little harsh. Hearing that, Eileen unexpectedly began to blush. The two of them face each other. Their stance is completely different. Logan stood with his sword pointed directly at Eileen, while Eileen held her sword angled downward behind her. In the next instant, she launched herself forward and attacked. Logan easily blocked her strike, countered immediately, and struck her down. With just a single exchange, Eileen was sent to the ground. Logan informed her that he had only used the flat side of his blade. As Eileen tried to push herself up, her servant shouted that her sides were wide open and she needed to be careful. Gritting her teeth, Eileen told herself that no matter what, she would land at least one hit on Logan. What followed was pure carnage. Logan knocked Eileen down again and again, but each time he did, he corrected her. He told her that her grip was too loose, that she needed to move faster, and that her sides were exposed again. Eventually, Eileen stood there completely defeated while Logan looked down at her. Rick was utterly stunned, while Eileen's servant broke down crying for her young lady. Logan commented that she looked exhausted and suggested they take a break. Eileen refused outright and attacked him again, this time coming dangerously close to landing a hit. Logan calmly told her to wipe the sweat from her face. As he stopped her attack once more, Eileen realized that even a sneak attack wouldn't work on him. Still, Logan praised her for trying. That praise left Eileen frozen in place. She stared at him, wondering why he wasn't angry at all. Logan then told her that she needed to move more concisely and promptly smacked her on the head. Eileen looked up, tears welling in her eyes, and admitted that Logan was not someone to mess with. Looking down at her, Logan realized that her bad habits made it obvious she had truly learned swordsmanship alone. Yet despite that, she had improved noticeably with only a few pointers. That alone proved she was genuinely talented. He thought that she still wasn't using her full potential, and wondered if this was exactly how Felix had felt when watching him. Suddenly, Eileen let out a fierce battle cry and charged again. This time, she changed her approach, weaving from side to side instead of attacking head-on. Logan acknowledged that her footwork was interesting and far better than her earlier straightforward charges. When she attacked again, he blocked it just as easily. Frustrated, Eileen shouted that no matter what she did, Logan kept deflecting everything. In the next instant, Logan appeared behind her and struck her back down. Still, he told her that her talent was more than sufficient. As she struggled to get up again, Logan added that she had great potential. Eileen insisted on trying one more time, and Logan thought that her grit alone was already a pass. Seeing that she was injured, he'd extended his hand, offering to help her up. She hesitated, clearly wanting to continue fighting, but eventually accepted his hand. Logan told her that he would give her another chance next time. Before we move ahead, please take a second to like on this video. A like tells me that you enjoyed this topic. Your support helps Amazing Pie grow naturally. They met. Then he suddenly pulled her closer to him. I honestly love this. Logan then leaned in near her ear and told her that he genuinely loved this. He whispered that she had incredible talent and invited her to come with him to McLean Estate. Later, inside Felix's room, a discussion was taking place. Logan asked Felix why he had chosen Eileen out of all possible people. Felix explained that there were two reasons behind his decision. First, he said that although the Floyd family was not involved with either of the princes, they still held considerable influence in the capital. They were a family capable of representing the Mecklins there. Hearing this, Logan thought that this was yet another reason Beffrose needed to wait. He reflected that he hadn't been overly worried since the Civil War would break out soon anyway. But from Felix's perspective, this choice made perfect sense. Felix then stated that the second reason was far more important. Logan fell silent, ready to listen. Felix admitted that he had been curious to see what would happen if a wild guy like Logan met a troublemaking maiden like Eileen. What he hadn't expected was for Logan to actually like her that much. As Felix laughed his ass off in the background, Logan thought that his master could be quite strange at times. Still, good was good. Felix told Logan that he had seen how his face turned red when he met Eileen and said that Logan finally looked like a boy his age. Logan didn't quite understand what he meant. Felix stood up from his chair and told Logan that he didn't know how heavy the burden on his shoulders truly was. Someone as young as Logan, wearing the expression of a man who had been holding up the entire world, wasn't easy to watch. Felix told him that he could share that burden if he wanted. He should open his heart more, trust the people around him, and allow himself to relax. Felix admitted he might be overstepping, but from everything he had heard, Eileen could give Logan the breathing room he needed. Logan wanted to tell Felix that his burden was something only he could carry, but Felix interrupted him, warning him not to wait too long to have a child, speaking from experience. The next day arrived, with beautiful autumn weather outside. Inside, however, Logan was sparring with several of the knights he had brought with him. As the knight he was fighting lost his balance, Logan asked him why he failed to block that attack and told him to keep his focus next time. Logan reflected that it had been 3 weeks since he'd arrived in the capital. Aside from that single date, He had spent every day training or sparring with these knights, which still counted as training in his mind. He wondered why he felt more pressure from them now that they were in the capital, and briefly considered whether he might have beaten them up too much. Henderson looked at Logan with an expression that was hard to describe, perhaps appreciation, maybe even admiration. Earlier that day, the Knights of Esperanza had spared with the McLean Knights, and Henderson's group had lost. One of Felix's knights commented that the Esperanzas required their knights to be mid-ranked, and said that people like Henderson should still be learning how to swing a sword. He added that Henderson might have potential, but his companions should find trainees to spar with next time. They also remarked that sparring on the first day showed excessive enthusiasm, which Henderson found strange. Henderson then told his companions that the Esperanza knights were strong, but not as strong as the Iron Blood Sword. His friend agreed, and recalled Logan telling them that he had received the Iron Blood Sword from the Duke himself. That made them wonder whether those knights were using a weaker sword style. Henderson began to suspect that Logan hadn't received the technique from the Duke at all, but had created it himself. Regardless, they believed their young master had bestowed them with skills superior even to the Duke's. Overwhelmed, they fell to their knees, calling Logan their great young master. Back in the present, Henderson and the others were staring at Logan, making him uncomfortable. He turned his back, thinking he wasn't sure what was going on with them, but since they weren't causing trouble and were focused on training, he let it be. Elsewhere in the capital, a wooden sign declared that the McLean special product was on sale. The man holding the sign was none other than Philip, shouting that this was a rare opportunity to buy the essential vanity product that had once made nobles gasp. He approached a man, claiming he could see worry on his face and assuring him that his medicine could solve all his problems. Then he shouted at another young man, saying he looks just like his master, only to realize that the person in front of him was actually Logan, who was visibly pissed. Philip immediately began bowing and explaining that there were too many competitors. In reality, he wasn't bowing at all. Logan was sitting on his back while Philip was forced to do push-ups. Logan commenting that his form was slipping. Logan told Philip that he would ensure he earned even more money, so there was no need to resort to such ridiculous sales tactics. Logan got off his back and told Philip to stand up, saying he had another business for him. Philip asked what kind of business that was. Logan introduced him to the Knights, explaining that they were the 18th squad of the McLean Knights and would be guarding him. Captain Henderson greeted Philip respectfully, saying it was an honor to meet him. Philip, confused, asked why he needed guards, 6 of them, no less. Logan told him not to worry, as it was simply a larger version of the business he was already running. He then instructed Philip to acquire as much weaponry, war horses, and lumber as possible before the year ended. Philip was stunned. He exploded, asking whether Logan was planning to wage another war. Logan calmly denied it, saying he was only being cautious. Philip nearly said that every time Logan claimed that they ended up in a war, but stopped himself, fearing bad luck. Philip then asked about the budget. Logan replied that it was 30 million gold and told him to get as much as possible within that amount. Philip thought Logan had gone insane. Logan, meanwhile, recalled the war with Sylvan and what he had learned. If they increased the number of crossbow cavalry, soldiers could take on low-ranked knights. Individual soldiers could defeat groups of force users. If successful, it would change battlefield norms. It might not rival the Empire's crossbows from his previous life, but it would come close. Philip argued that Logan didn't understand how markets worked, and that he wouldn't be able to acquire even half of what he wanted. When Logan asked why, Philip explained that sudden demand would skyrocket prices, especially horses. More money didn't mean horses would suddenly be born in triplets, or ponies would grow faster. Logan wondered if he had made the request too late and thought it should have been fine before the war. Philip accused him again of planning another war, which Logan denied. Philip held up 3 fingers and explained that prices would likely triple. Logan accepted that it couldn't be helped. Philip thought that it worked, but Logan added that it would be fine to go up to double the current market price. Philip realized Logan wasn't backing down, and that prices would still likely triple. When Philip tried to argue again, Logan interrupted him. He promised that if Philip managed to buy supplies for less than double the market price, he would receive a bonus equal to 3% of the difference. Philip froze and asked how much that would be. Logan calmly explained the percentage. Philip was stunned and promised to do his best. Henderson quietly wondered if 3% was a lot, since numbers had never been his strength. Philip, overjoyed, began massaging Logan's shoulders, while Logan thought that money really did solve everything. He reflected that he had gained valuable insight into training from his teacher, and had unexpectedly gained Eileen as well. Things were going well. Still, one issue lingered in his mind. King Samuel, there was still no bad news, no sign of internal conflict. Logan could only wonder whether the king's death had truly been sudden. His next step was to earn his teacher's full trust. He thought it would have been better to meet the third prince, but forcing that encounter would look suspicious. Felix's child would be born soon, and after naming him, Logan planned to return to the McLean estate with Eileen. Later, Felix informed Logan that His Majesty had summoned him, and that Logan would need to accompany him. Hearing this, Logan was left momentarily speechless, unsure of what awaited him. At the gates of the royal palace, a guard verified Duke Esperanza's identity and allowed Felix and Logan to proceed toward the throne room. As they moved forward, Logan wondered why the king would want to see someone like him. After all, he was merely the son of a countryside baron, a nobody in the eyes of the royal court, and ordinarily someone who would never be granted an audience with the king. Noticing the unease on Logan's face, Felix asked if he was worried. Logan snapped back to attention. Felix reassured him that there was nothing to fear, explaining that His Majesty simply wished to see Felix as pupil. He added that the king valued talent above all else, and that this meeting would only benefit Logan, not harm him. Logan nodded, saying he understood, but his thoughts drifted elsewhere. He looked up at the palace towering above them, and remarked that even the Empire had hesitated to destroy it, ordering instead that it be preserved. That was the beauty of grandeur. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to Amazing Apai. Subscribing makes sure you do not miss the next video, and it gives me motivation to keep improving the quality of every upload. Thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.